Hello, and welcome to another edition of 10th Ward TV. My name is Sam Gomez, your host of this episode of Our Neighborhood Television. I am also the general manager of Our Neighborhood Times, the community newspaper of the Southeast Side, where our main goal is to promote the voice of the community. For more information regarding our publication, questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to contact us at info@ontwnews.com. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/ONTnews. Many new and exciting things have happened since our last show. Our neighborhood has played host to new fests, welcomed new businesses, and has many infrastructure projects currently in the works, which ultimately means more jobs for our residents. We will start the show by going over some of the major business projects and events that have happened over the past few months, as well as discussing what is coming soon. One of the biggest changes that has happened since our last show was the election of our new mayor, Rahm Emanuel. We would first like to congratulate Mayor Emanuel, and we look forward to many more positive changes to the second city. We would also like to congratulate Alderman John A. Pope for winning re-election to a fourth straight term as Alderman of the 10th Ward. Unfortunately, our community remains one of the most underutilized areas in the city, but thanks to Governor Pat Quinn, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and Alderman Pope, as well as companies like Lucadia, Chicago Clean Energy, AOS, Jam Productions, and McCaffrey Interests, and organizations like the Calumet Area Industrial Commission, I believe we are finally witnessing a turning point with regard to the revitalization of our neighborhood and surrounding area. As always, one of the main focal points of this last election cycle was with regard to job creation and infrastructure needs within the city and state. Governor Quinn, Mayor Emanuel, and Alderman Pope have all touted our community as a place with enormous potential for job creation and business growth. But this time around, much has been done at the state level with regard to addressing these concerns. Governor Quinn has visited our neighborhood twice within the past few months. The first visit took place on July 13th, where he signed into law Senate Bill 1533, a bill facilitating construction of a $3 billion plant that would turn coal into natural gas on the site of a former steel mill plant at 115th Street and Burleigh Avenue. His second visit was August 23rd, in which he announced the start of construction on a $146 million project that highlights the state's ongoing efforts to improve infrastructure and create jobs. Other business developments currently under construction or in proposal stages are Asphalt Operating Services facility located on 106th and Torrance. Peninsula Compost Company is currently in negotiations to build a new facility near 122nd and Torrance. Their composting facility located in Wilmington, Delaware, currently diverts 120,000 tons of organic waste annually from landfills in that area. Here to further discuss the boom of business development in our community this past year are 10th Ward Alderman John Pope and the President of the Calumet Area Industrial Commission, Ted Stalnos. Thank you very much, both gentlemen, for attending. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Although we are starting the show off with the business aspects of the community, I'm excited to hear about what's going on. The first thing I'd like to ask, actually, is a question of you, Mr. Pope.
Sure.
Being that we are now in a new city council with a new mayor, I'd like to know, what's it like working with a new mayor for the first time in your political career?
Well, I think it's new for everyone. We've had 22 years of Mayor Daley, and I had a great relationship with the mayor. Mayor Daley thought he did a wonderful job for all of Chicago. So to some degree, we certainly miss him, but times change, and new people come and go. Mayor Emanuel won the election. He's the duly entitled mayor, so we are working fully with him. Unfortunately, it's a tough budget, so he's had a short time to get up and running, but in the short time that he's been in office, the first 100 days, I know he's done much to work on those items that he prioritized during his campaign election. And we've met several times both prior to the election and after, and he seems very focused, very knowledgeable of the 10th Ward. And I've invited him to come down and do a tour of the ward so that he can get a first-hand feel of what I'm talking about, instead of listening to just me or staff, but actually visiting. And he's been down several times, but he's committed to coming down, and not necessarily for a PR thing, but to see firsthand what is happening and what's not happening. So very focused, very intelligent, very knowledgeable about all the items, and very driven as he has to be given our significant budget crisis and the crisis that I think all of the country faces with foreclosures and unemployment.
Over many years in the past, there's a lot of people in the community that feel that the 10th Ward has been greatly neglected in the past. What is your opinion with regard to what the new mayor feels about this area?
Well, I think Ted can speak to this too as a lifelong resident. The area has been known as an industrial area, and I think this mayor, as of the past, recognized the value of industry and that we have to maintain the base that we have in the city and in the country and try to expand it. But I think our history allows us to really focus on the industrial attractiveness of the area. and he realizes and has been supportive of some of the issues or items you mentioned earlier. So I think he has a focus on there. He has a focus on all the neighborhoods because he realizes that all the neighborhoods really have to be successful for the city as a whole to be successful, and realizes what kind of potential exists in each neighborhood. And ours, quite honestly, we're not going to see a lot of residential development. Even during the boom of the residential time, we did not have a lot of new residential starts. But we have a lot of amenities that allow for industrial development and expansion, and I think that's where we have to focus, and I think that's where the mayor is too, understanding that the industrial corridor in the 10th Ward is crucial and has much opportunity, and he, like myself and Ted, want to focus on maximizing that.
Right. Well, speaking of the industrial corridor, Mr. Stalnos, thank you very much for being here.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
My first question would be, how long have you been president of the CAIC, and what's the role of the CAIC?
I've been president of the Calumet Area Industrial Commission for 3 years. The mission of the organization, which has been around since 1967, is to promote retention and attraction of industry in the greater Calumet area. So everything that can be done to support industry's efforts to find it an attractive place to locate and hire employees that build our economy is what the Commission's goal is all about.
And how do you feel now about so much industrial activity happening as of late? It seems that for so long, so much land has been underutilized, and being a resident myself, driving around, it's nice to see a lot of the activity going on. It seems that we're finally getting some major people to take a look at our area.
Well, I feel blessed. As Jan said, I've lived in the area all my life, and I explained this once before. I feel like Lazarus watching the dead come back up again. And unfortunately, in the 1980s, I worked with the Steelworkers Union to put a lot of people back in trying to find work in different areas and different communities. Luckily, the Chicagoland area is very diverse, and a lot of people went in the service sector and the healthcare sector, and those are all important components of our economy. But the one thing that still remains is that manufacturing, by and large, and there's empirical data to support this, is the best paying, best benefit package, what I consider meaningful employment with benefits that you can raise families with. And we're fortunate enough to be in an area that supports industry like that and these type of jobs. So I'm ecstatic, without going, without jumping up in the air here, but my feeling is this is fantastic. Right. It's fantastic for all concerned.
Right, I agree. What role does CAIC play with regard to all this business growth, and also the Alderman's office? You know, feel free to let us know. How are you involved in the actual process by which businesses may require about the land or go through the process?
Right. We keep an inventory of the available land as it becomes available, and constantly changing that. We work with the real estate brokers and people that are calling in from around the country that are interested in certain sections of land, looking at, some are just looking for a place to pop up a sign and do business and be happy to truck their stuff in and out. Others are going to be far more specific, where their needs are going to be needing maritime, both water access and rail access, and so we try to make those matches, and also working, of course, with the Alderman to make sure it's a good fit with what other plans are being done in the ward, and not to contradict anything. So, you know, and we have the planned manufacturing development centers and the industrial corridor. So there is a defined pattern of where industry, you know, should be. And being a community resident, I appreciate that, because I think that the corridors separating industry from residents somewhat it makes sense. It just makes sense. We don't want trucks going down side streets and things like that.
Right.
Hey, Alderman, being on the fact that we're on the subject of new production and other things like that, what is the importance of Governor Quinn's support for the gasification bill and the Ford project, in your opinion?
Well, I think the gasification, the Chicago Clean Energy, Leucadia project is extremely significant. And I think we need to take into account that this had required or needed legislative approval. Both the Senate and the House approved a bill that allows for a $3 billion project to come to the southeast side, the 10th Ward, and allows for thousands of jobs. And Ted could speak to some of the jobs and benefits, but It allows for a great economic boom to not just the 10th Ward, but the City of Chicago and the entire state in a time when it's really needed. And it allows for downstate jobs too. We're going to be using downstate coal, Illinois coal, which is very rich and populous downstate, to help fuel this facility. It puts people to work downstate, more than 100 people down there, more than 1,100 good paying jobs here in the City of Chicago for approximately 4 years. And it provides the citizens, myself, yourself included, with stable prices on natural gas that we use to heat our homes during the winter, that we use to fuel our stoves. And it provides protection for consumers too. For some reason, if the prices of the natural gas that is being provided by this plant go higher than expected, that the consumers are not going to be left out and hanging to dry. We actually have some rate protections in place to protect the common folks, which is exactly what this legislation was intended to bring economic development to the community, but to protect the ratepayers so they were not the ones who were hurt by bringing big business into the city.
Before we get to the subject of jobs and the infrastructure buildup on the Ford plant, can you both, either you talk a little bit more about who is Leucadia, what do they do? Also, there's a term that I've heard described as the plot of land that the property is going to be built on. What I've heard is that it's going to require around $30 million just to prepare it for this plant.
That's true.
I've heard the term brownfield site being used. Can you talk a little bit about that impact that we're going to have in the area as far as the site?
I'll actually let Ted talk about it because Ted's somewhat familiar with the site.
Yeah.
He's intimately familiar because of some of his history. Not that we both don't know about it, but Ted, if you would.
Yeah, sure. That's the site of the old LTV, fully integrated steel facility that was there at one time, and it employed over 5,000 area residents. I, as a young man, walked in there at the age of 18 and walked out at the age of 33. So I spent, when the Alderman is talking about intimate knowledge, I know that tract of land well. And one of the concerns as a resident, not as speaking, taking my hat off as the Calumet Area Industrial Commission, as a resident, is how was that ever going to be remediated? Because industry 100 years ago is not the same players that our industry now, and didn't exactly do the right thing to communities. So we recognize that and openly talk about it. Yes, the cost of remediating that land is enormous, and without a redevelopment project, as we all know, Washington is not talking about spending any money on anything right now. All they're looking to do is being able to look at how to cut the deficit. So we can't look to Washington. We know about the state of Illinois, and we certainly know about the city and county's finances. So without private development coming in and spearheading this cleanup, it simply would not have taken place. It would be a non-starter. There's just no money out in any of our government sources.
And it's about a $29 to $30 million cleanup. So you're talking about private company Leucadia, traded on the New York Stock Exchange, who has done other gasification plants throughout the country and are looking to do more. And gasification plants are, quite honestly, commonplace overseas in China, in Europe, Asia, where they tend to be a little more accepted. Technology has advanced more recently in recent years to have those type of projects become more acceptable here in the States, and I think we're starting to catch up and take advantage of those technologies and the benefits that they provide.
I know some people in the community have concerns with regard to the additional pollution or anything like that going on in the community. Myself personally, just the dollar amount of this project, and as far as technology has gone in every other way, I would imagine that this plant is going to operate much cleaner than anything that we've seen in our lifetimes. As a matter of fact, just outside of the borders in Indiana, there's still a lot of plants that are actually currently probably being slated to close and things like that. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, being an area resident, being concerned of myself, not only living in the area, but my children and my grandchildren. Of course, I'm going to be concerned about anything that's brought in the area. I think probably the most telling sign of measurement of how little this new plant will emit is that they're applying for the same type of emission permit that the Art Institute would use. So, in compared to heavy industry, that's really not much of a factor. Would we have a problem if the Art Institute came from southeast Chicago? I don't think so. And worrying about the residual effects or the carbon footprint of that, I don't think that would be a large concern. So as, again, putting on that other hat as a Hagwish resident, as family that lives in Slag Valley and so forth, I'm pretty satisfied with it. Plus, I trust that our enforcement arms, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, is going to do their due diligence and make sure that Leucadia is in compliance.
Right.
And I'm sure Leucadia realizes that.
Right.
With
Well,
that
people
type
need to
of
understand this is serious business these days. People don't.
It is serious business, but they're a multi-billion-dollar company, and I think there's been a lot of misinformation, especially during the political season. We see that all the time.
Right.
This past political season was nothing different. This was one of the main focus of several groups who chose to make this an issue, and certainly it's of great importance, but it became more of a political issue than others. And you have to remember, the governor did sign the Senate bill. He signed the legislation that enabled this, but he originally vetoed it because he had some concerns. And I think we all know Governor Quinn has been very environmentally conscious. He founded CUB, Citizen Utility Board. So there were some issues that needed to be worked out, and as part of the legislative process, those issues were worked out. Now groups are in favor of this, who in the past were not in favor of it or were maybe staying neutral. So we do have much support now, and I think much misinformation has been out there. We'll continue to have more meetings, and there'll be more tweaking of the project as it goes through the permitting, both on the state level and the city level, to ensure that the public has a chance to learn more about the realities of this and not the misinformation, and to voice their opinion so we get the best project possible on all ends.
Well, I'm sure you can possibly find some more information about this project and other projects on your website or through your office, right?
Yes, sure. Certainly at johnapope.org or cityofchicago.org as well.
Mr. Stalnos, with regard to the training, that's another bit of misinformation that I feel needs to be brought out into the air. I hear people occasionally say, well, those jobs aren't for us, as if to say that there aren't enough people in our community who have the intelligence or whatever the requirements may be. Isn't there something going on now where we're working on possibly training people to be there? Or
actually, those kind of statements really are self-condescending, I feel.
I agree.
And that saying, really indicates that people that live in my community, and myself and my family and my friends, my neighbors, aren't able to learn new tasks and new skills, which we know is not the true statement. The southeast side, one of the greatest reasons why industry comes here is because of the workforce. I have every bit of confidence that people from the southeast side will do well in this. We have already taken steps to work with Chicago Clean Energy to develop a community benefits plan, where we will work with the community colleges, to make sure that before this plant is up and running, the 200 permanent, well-paying jobs, that the community residents will be ready to be able to man that facility. And frankly, working in the workforce development and for many, many years, people like to hire locally. They really do. It's a better bet. When snowstorms come and other things like that, if you can get somebody local, you're much better off.
Right.
And we're working with the city colleges, Olive Harvey in the neighborhood, to ensure that there's the job training to prepare these local residents to ensure that they have the best opportunity available to actually take those good paying positions.
Well, I know you gentlemen have other things to do, but is there anything that you would like to close with, talk about any other projects that are coming up with the neighborhood in the future, or anything that you'd like to just talk about?
Alderman,
I would just like to thank our hosts, of course you, Sam, and our Neighborhood Times, and of course CAIC and the Senior Network. They've always been great people in the city of Chicago. Get the information out, get accurate information out, and encourage people to get involved with the community, whether it's through our office, through the local churches and schools. School is starting up here in September, so we want to encourage the parents to get their kids in school and lead by example. Make sure you're informed. Pay attention to the CAICs of the world. Pay attention to the local newspapers. Make sure you're well educated so you can speak intelligently about the subject. And if not, come talk to us, the people who are in the mix, to get at least our opinions so they can make good judgments.
Mr. Stalnos?
I'd just like to echo what the Alderman said, and I'm really glad that you're highlighting industry in a positive light and being able to get that voice out, because I think one of the great things about the southeast area is southeast part of Chicago is that we do have a diverse economy, and with all due respect for people that work in healthcare, the public sector, the service sector, manufacturing is still the backbone of what makes that whole area run. It's the economic engine, and I'm just ecstatic that things are moving in the direction that they are right now.
As am I, and I look forward to being a part of it and finding out more information about everything that goes on. Thank you again very much for your time.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we
you.
will be right back with a little bit more. I would like to thank both of my guests, 10th Ward Alderman John Pope and CAIC President Ted Stalnos, for visiting today. It sure is great to see so much unused land being put to use again. Once again, for more information regarding our publication, questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to contact us at info@onwnews.com. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/ONTnews. While there have been many business and industry projects updates in our neighborhood, we also had many new fun events happen since our last taping as well. McCaffrey Interests, along with Jam Productions, brought over 100,000 people to our backyard to enjoy a 3-day musical festival headlined by the Dave Matthews Band. Much went into preparation of this 3-day concert. All told, 59 tons of material were removed from over 145 acres of land that had not been utilized in decades. The event took place in the former USX steel mill site, now known as Lakeside. A vast majority of the attendees had never been to this part of the city. Many didn't even know the city of Chicago came this far southeast. Not only was the event a great success and a positive highlight for our neighborhood, but local organizations such as the Neighborhood House in the Bush community benefited financially as well. Our Neighborhood Times organized a few events over the spring and summer as well. With the endorsement of Alderman John Pope, ONT organized the first-time Battle of the Bands competition, which took place over the span of 5 weeks and included 10 outstanding local bands performing at 5 different local venues. Although we experienced some growing pains, overall the battle was a great success, and the ultimate goal of showcasing local music while getting the community involved was achieved. Mixmasters DJs, with special thanks to DJ Jam Master C, Joseph Cisneros, were integral in the success of these events. The finals of the Battle of the Bands were held at a new summer festival called the Southeast Side Summerfest, also brought to you by our Neighborhood Times and Alderman John Pope. Over 5,000 people came out and enjoyed 3 days of fun, food, live entertainment, and cold drinks on the weekend of June 24th through the 26th. No fest of this size and scope has been held in the community since the last Hegwish Fest in 1998. This first-year 3-day event brought together local restaurants, musicians, artists, talented youth, and the community in a way that hasn't happened in a very long time. Thank you all who attended, performed, and believe in us to pull off such a large undertaking. Next year is sure to be even better. If you're interested in competing in the Battle of the Bands, being a part of next year's fest, or just have any general questions or comments, please email us at info@onwnews. The Southeast Side Summerfest was a great success for being a first-year addition to the festivals already within the community. It was our hope that this new fest, along with other longtime staples of the community such as St. Florian's, St. Kevin's, and Sacred Heart and Enseada, would give everyone in the 10th Ward a sense that we are really growing together as a community. Stay tuned to our Facebook page at facebook.com/ONTnews and be sure to pick up the latest copy every other week. In my humble opinion, it's a very exciting time to live in the 10th Ward. There are very vocal few that seem to want to oppose everything that's going on in our neighborhood for what seems like just opposition's sake. Although the concerns in the community with regard to environmental issues are valid, in my opinion, this new industry promises to operate at levels well below industry of old. The opposition seems to forget that this area thrived with industry, and most of that land has gone unoccupied for decades. Today we have the promise of multi-billion-dollar industry projects and new job creation. I have heard far too many people say, but these jobs aren't for us. And I say to that, why not? It pains me that so many people seem to think that no one who lives in our community would be qualified for such jobs. But it isn't just opposition to industry that we hear on a daily basis. People oppose the Dave Matthews Band being here. Once again, the naysayers folded their arms and stood outside of the fence and said, this concert is not for us. And to that I say also, why not? Many voiced concerns about how many people would actually come to Bush or South Chicago for anything like that out of fear for their safety. I personally attended this event along with over 100,000 other people over the 3-day weekend. For me, it wasn't just about the music. It was about the excitement I felt being that far east of the walls that towered over my youth growing up in Bush for the first time in my life. Many exciting things are happening, and I am proud to say that I live here to see them. Stay tuned to ONT for all upcoming events and news. I'd like to once again thank my guests, Alderman John Pope and CAIC President Ted Stalnos. Special thank you to Natalie Vitaterna and Dan Lira. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next episode.
Thank you.